5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Two timeouts for Oklahoma. Kansas with Leo. Touchdown! Lawrence's own gives Kansas the lead. Dylan Gabriel to the end zone. Incomplete. A generational win for Kansas. Finally toppling Oklahoma. Kick on the way, and it is good! The Jets win it! Out at 0-1. Grounds one through. Texas takes the lead. Singers in to score. Carter stopped at third. And after 6 innings without a hit, 3 in a row here in the 7th. In their 63rd season. It's the Texas Rangers win the World Series.
You're listening to another edition of Sports Today with Peter J. Here's your host, Peter J. Mulroy.
Well, I know one of the interesting things about the World Series was the fact that everybody was saying going into it that the ratings were going to be low, and they were. Rangers, Diamondbacks, perhaps on paper, when you're looking at it, not the sexiest of matchups, but if you're a baseball Puritan and you enjoy the spirit of the game and just, hey, oh, by the way, watching good baseball, you saw a really good Texas Rangers team and a really bright future for a Diamondbacks team that I said about a month and a half ago I thought was title good. And then as soon as I said it, they went on an 8-game losing streak. But you saw a glimpse of what the immediate future is going to hold for that Diamondbacks team. An 84-win team in the World Series, rarefied air. Hot at the right time, yes. Uber talented, undoubtedly. Welcome to the latest edition of Sports Today with Peter J, the Thursday, November 2nd edition. Special happy birthday to my mother out in Austin, Texas. Don't bother asking how old she is because I don't even know. But a happy birthday to my mom, Linda, who's out listening in Texas tonight, celebrating her birthday in much warmer conditions than we have here in the Northeast. Plenty to talk about, and obviously starting with the World Series probably makes the most sense. And you look at what this Texas Ranger team was able to accomplish. Sure, it's the first title in the history of the organization. Been around 63 years. That in and of itself is highly impressive. But when you break down the path to the title, it becomes all that more inspiring. Folks, this is a team that went 11-0 on the road in the playoffs this year. Going on the road and taking games 1 and 2 in the opening round from the Baltimore Orioles, who won an always difficult American League East. You know, Yankees, Red Sox missed out on the playoffs, but they weren't easy outs. Blue Jays, Rays, playoff teams. And this is a Texas team that sweeps Baltimore. Matter of fact, made it look relatively easy. You fast forward a little bit, and they're aligning themselves against the Houston Astros in the American League Championship Series. Tough enough. We know for recency's sake how dominant the Astros have been. And people certainly have their opinions of that. That's not what this is about. The Houston Astros are legitimate, and they have been the dominant team of the last decade with multiple World Series titles and multiple World Series trips at that. Coming into the tournament, the defending champions. Texas gets down 3-2. All they do is go back on the road after winning games 1 and 2 in Houston, dropping 3, 4, and 5 at home. And then they turn around and get 6 and 7 on the road in Houston, which is unfathomable that you would be able to do that against a battle-tested organization come this time, which is basically a formality, right? For the Houston Astros, the regular season's almost become a formality. Let's get through the 162 and on to the tournament. And they've been so successful at doing that, then why not? Why wouldn't they be viewed as the favorite? But then here come the Rangers, a healthy Rangers who battled down the stretch with the Astros in the AL West, with the Seattle Mariners in the AL West. I mean, that was the focus of my show for the last 3 weeks of the season, was what was the theatrics of what was happening in the American League East, because it was must-see TV every single day if you were a baseball fan. 2 were going to get in, 1 was going to get bounced. It happened to be the Mariners. That's how tight that race was in the AL West. And out come the 90-win Rangers on into the World Series. Now, they might have been one of the hotter picks out of the AL if you were doing your DraftKings or FanDuel or just pick them with your friends. Who do you think's going to the World Series? Me, personally, I thought it would be Baltimore. I thought it'd be Baltimore, Atlanta. Kind of went chalk there based on what I saw during the regular season, like most people would have. And honestly, I was wrong. But that Texas Ranger team, I saw a question on ESPN earlier. Hot at the right time or legitimate title good? Well, obviously they're legitimately title good, guys. I mean, this wasn't a fluke. This was a team that got out to a red-hot start in the beginning of the year and kind of teetered with injuries. Acquiring Max Scherzer, he gets banged up. You had Jacob deGrom pitching well in the beginning. Of course, he goes down with an injury never to be seen again this season. You thought maybe losing Adolis Garcia, like they did in Game 4, would be a problem. Nope. Guys like Mitch Haniger, Josh Young, the rookie third baseman, who is phenomenal, going to be a cornerstone for them for a long time. They push the right buttons. And oh, by the way, for the people who don't invest a lot in managerial positions in baseball, convince me that Bruce Bochy's thumbprint on this team didn't make a difference. You knew the ratings were going to be lower because of who was in the tournament, but if you watched it from a purely baseball perspective, it was fantastic. I mean, even if you use Game 4 as an example, when Texas goes up 10-0, final score is 11-7. So if we're into runs, some people like the pitching and the defense. Some people like the defense in football outside of the points. I get it. That was worthwhile baseball, and Texas gets it done in 5. And they're set up for success moving forward. Now, when you look at what Arizona had accomplished, again, I'll say 84 wins during the regular season. All they did was mow down Dodgers via the sweep. So you had the Rangers and the Diamondbacks moving on after round 1 via sweeps. Impressive. Probably less likely that you would have thought the Diamondbacks would be a team to do that with the Dodgers. Then they knock out the Atlanta Braves. And then they go blow for blow with Philly. And almost the parallels between Texas and Arizona were eye-popping. You think Arizona, 3-2 hole coming out of the desert, going to Philly, much like Texas did going to Houston, and they take 2. They take a Game 6 in Philadelphia. They take a Game 7 in Philly in front of that raucous crowd to get to the World Series. And they were 3 outs away from taking Game 1, ultimately did take Game 2. Don't you think it's a different series if Arizona doesn't blow that 2-run lead in the 9th of Game 1? I think so. Momentum plays a big deal in this, especially with a young team. But what that team is set up with guys like Carroll, you listen to the show, you know how much I love Corbin Carroll. Ketel Marte, who all he does is produce in the home runs. The amount of games he's played, he's got double the hits in the postseason. That's impressive. That's an impressive stat line. Christian Walker, a 30-plus homer, 100-plus RBI guy playing first base. Solidified corner options. Gabby Moreno behind the plate. I mean, this eventually they're going to have to pay some of these guys, and they will. How about Gallen in the rotation? How about Brendan Pfaadt moving forward, really finding his footing on that big stage where a lot of these young kids were thrown into it? And this wasn't just an Arizona team that acquitted itself well, folks. This was a team that was battling from Game 1 of the regular season all the way through. Yes, some lulls and ups and downs. So I thought I kind of had foot and mouth disease about 7 weeks ago, when I said I thought they were title good. I never saw this, though. Because as soon as I said that, again, Arizona goes on an 8-game losing streak. But here they are when it mattered most. They come up short, yes. But I don't go into the offseason when we will start doing postmortems moving forward for a lot of these teams in the offseason in the coming weeks, as we get more and more even into the NBA and NHL, as these talking points grow with free agency and the winter meetings. I don't leave this season with this World Series disappointed. I thought it was great baseball. I thought it was a great storyline. I thought there were multiple enjoyable storylines with the youth of the Diamondbacks, some of the veteran leadership combining with the youth of this Texas Ranger team led by Bruce Bochy, who won 3 titles when he was the manager at San Francisco. That's cool stuff. And if you appreciate the game of baseball, you should have appreciated that World Series. Now, I know the numbers were down. The average less than 9 million. That's a dip from when you had even during the COVID year when it was Tampa Bay, LA in the shortened 60-game season. But if you watch those games and you watch the CSs leading up to them, it was a fun tournament, and I think it was a good way to go out. Texas gets its first title in the 63 years of the franchise. And before we move on with some quick Yankee news, how about what Corey Seager did at the shortstop position across 5 games in the World Series? 3 dingers, 6 runs driven in 5 games. I mean, that's putting a team on your back. This is a Texas team, folks, that across the 5 games in the World Series scored 26 runs. Undefeated on the road. Talk about battle tested. You don't think winning in Baltimore propels them moving forward to then go win in Houston and then win home and road games in the World Series? That's big. That's big. 90-72 regular season, because like Arizona, they did have some lulls. That's a team that was even better than the 90 wins they put forward on paper this year. And the proof is now in the pudding, as they've won the Fall Classic, and they can go into the offseason as the one team who, every year, right? There's always one team who accomplishes the ultimate goal. This year, it's the Texas Rangers. So hats off to Bruce Bochy and company, because that was a hell of a job to go. You can't say it enough. 11-0 in an American League that included the Blue Jays, the Tampa Bay Rays, who were the talk of baseball outside of the Braves for 75% of the year. The Houston Astros they knock off. I mean, this was remarkable baseball, and to not lose a road game, to not lose an elimination game, they are deservingly the champions, and right now, the overwhelming best team in baseball. At a Yankees camp today, Domingo Germán, obviously the guy's got good stuff, does the righty, and he had been, for the most part, a fairly reliable asset to that Yankee rotation. There's baggage there with the domestic violence issues, the off-the-field issues with the substance abuse and whatnot. Yankees outrighted him today. And what that means for those of you who might be a little unclear with that, and I just saw this about 20 minutes ago. Again, for those listening live, 7:12 p.m. Thursday, November 2nd out here on the East Coast. This only came across about 20 minutes ago. He's outrighted. Now, that means he can go through free agency or actually be claimed by another team. So Domingo Germán's time with the Yankees is over. And I think that's a good thing. I just think it became a situation that the New York Yankees, after what was really amounted to be, yes, a disappointing year, but one I didn't think was all that shocking, because not much had been done outside of the Rodon deal, which obviously didn't work out to injury, and then Aaron Judge's continued injuries after crashing into that wall in LA. They didn't do much to really reignite that offense from a poor showing in the American League Championship Series the year before. This is the type of headache that you just didn't need. And the Yankees had offered assistance, guidance, and support here for Germán over the last couple of years. This is now a situation where this is the right move. Move on. Someone is going to claim this guy because, again, he is an effective pitcher. But the headache, the off-the-field stuff for a Yankee team that's now trying to reinvent itself in the clubhouse and in the analytic department, this is just something that they did not need to deal with. You probably thought it might have been something that was coming down the pipeline, but to have it happen the night after the World Series, you'll start to see more and more things now develop as we go into deeper in November, and then obviously through the winter meetings before spring training and whatnot. So Yankees have some tough decisions to make with some free agents of their own. Tonight is not the night to talk about all of those things, but the Germán news was certainly something that needed to be mentioned because it affects this Yankee team and its rotation, and does have an impact on that AL East moving forward as well. But again, just to put a bow on things like this, that World Series, the ratings are down. You knew that was going to happen. Not the sexiest matchup on paper, but the Puritans would have enjoyed that from a purely baseball perspective. because, folks, I know I did. I thought that was some damn good baseball, and you finally got a chance to see how good that Texas Ranger team really is.
Hit subscribe and don't miss the next episode.
Sports Today with Peter J.
Yeah, by now we all know where to subscribe, right? We're on Podbean Live every Friday. This is a little different. I got a wedding this weekend, so I'm going to be away, hence the Thursday night hosting. Spotify, right here on Podbean, iTunes, iHeartRadio. You can subscribe at all time. Again, listenership continues to skyrocket, and effective next week, we'll be unveiling our first official sponsor of Sports Today with Peter J. So that'll be an exciting time to announce that and debut the first commercial spot for that next Friday. As we shift out of the World Series, and jump into the football landscape, you got another big week as buys are starting to pop up. Week 9 gets interesting here, as it usually does. You start to see a little bit of carousel taking place. Quarterback changes, there's coaching changes going on. One of the things that really has stuck out to me is the injury bug that has really nailed the league as a whole. You saw earlier in the week, Kirk Cousins in Minnesota done for the season. ACL, his time in Minnesota might be up, at least for this year. So what do the Vikings do? They go out and they poach Joshua Dobbs from Arizona, who on a bad team has played well. So it gives Minnesota an opportunity there to kind of stay head above water, as they've won 3 straight and try to stay in this playoff race. The Vikings were left for dead a couple weeks ago. So here they are heading into week 9, and we're going to go through the picks in just a little bit. But this is a Minnesota team that now is right in the thick of things. Moving forward, you lose Cousins. That's a big deal. If they're able to keep things working, with a defense that is suspect, then now you add Cam Akers into the backfield to go along with Madison. You don't know if it's enough, but momentum might be able to continue here, and you might be able to see what the Vikings have moving forward. Really the talk of week 8, before we highlight a little more of what's going on this weekend to come, was the Jet-Giant game. And not for good reasons. 22 plus punts combined, whatever it was, 24 punts, 16 combined by both teams before halftime. Weather wasn't great. It was a miserable scene in the crowd, a giant home game. And, the New York Jets escape out of there, I guess you would say, with a victory handed to them on a silver platter. Now, there's not all that much that you could say about last week, really, for either team that was positive. But the one thing that I really, and even I usually, my wife and I have this conversation all the time. It takes me a long time to get over losses for teams that I root for regularly. But the really knife to the chest losses take longer. And all you sports fans know exactly what I'm talking about. This one takes a solid week to get over. I mean, it's every day something's coming up about another giant collapse. And at 2-6, the season's over. They got some winnable games. I know Daniel Jones comes back this week. So it looks like the bookend tackles in Evan Neal, who's been out the last 2 games. Andrew Thomas, thank God, who's been out the last 7, might be able to play at left tackle this weekend against the Raiders, who are another dumpster fire. But again, at 2-6, you're not doing too much without a miracle. Now, the teams in front of them in the playoff race, I guess, are bad. We're not even going that far. When you break down and go slice for slice with what happened in that Giant game, doesn't matter who's under center, doesn't matter who's on the field. When you have a chance to win a game in the National Football League, you're supposed to jump at it. And the Giants did everything but that. Everything but that. You had the third-string quarterback after the tough injury to Tyrod Taylor, who had the rib injury. He's out. Now, Tommy DeVito had been the primary backup to Tyrod Taylor because, as you all know or should know, Daniel Jones had been out for 3 months with a neck injury, 3 weeks with a neck injury that he suffered in the Miami loss. And what the Giants showed, what the coaching staff showed, and what ownership and management showed in that moment when Tommy DeVito had to come in against the New York Jets, a good NFL defense, was that this guy, who was your primary backup quarterback, meaning If your new QB1, Tyrod Taylor, goes down, this is the guy coming in. What the Giants showed you was that they did not prepare this guy for success. 25 plays run, he throws one pass, one forward pass. Threw more, but 2 of them were called back for penalties. So you have an NFL quarterback in there who had acquitted himself well early. DeVito actually ran for a touchdown against a really good Jets rush defense. That's actually the best part of the Jets defense. People think it's the secondary. It's not. It's that front line. That kid runs in for a touchdown. No throws, no willingness to advance the ball down the field. You got a banged up kicker who, by the way, with Gano, the 231-yarders, if you're on the field, you got to make the kicks. Now, Gano got put on the shelf today. Randy Bullock's back in town. He's expected to take the Giants' kicking job moving forward. But I was blown away at the Giants' inability to make sound, logical, level-headed decisions, specifically the last 3 minutes of that football game. You got the Jets on their heels. They're not moving the football. Zach Wilson is not doing a thing other than turn it over twice with fumbles. He had not done a thing all game. Not a damn thing. Giant defense has played like this all season, by the way. And what do the Giants do? Even with the Jets, not with timeouts at their disposal, they're running plays with 4 or 5 seconds left on the play clock. They're kicking field goals on 4th and 1 when you can step on the Jets' throat, even if you missed a field goal. And you were to give Zach Wilson the football from the spot of the miss with no timeouts and the way he had played and the lack of production he was getting on the outside, you take your chances there. Brian Daboll goes for that last drive on 4th and 1 a season ago. I don't know what the hell happened. Because this New York Giants defense, folks, team is not very good. But they're not a horrendous football team. They're not an embarrassment. The offense is lousy. They struggle to score points. That's been a product of bad quarterback play from Jones included. A product of awful offensive line play. Hence why Jones was hurt. And part of the reason why Tyrod Taylor got hurt last week. But if you don't take chances, if you don't play aggressive, with all the momentum on your side, I mean, the mathematical percentages of the Giants losing that game on that final drive after Thibodeau almost knocked Zach Wilson out cold were almost zero. There was almost a 0% mathematical chance that the Giants would lose the game. And I said it. We were eating dinner. I looked right at my wife when Gano missed the 31-yarder, and I said the Jets are going to win. And that is exactly what happened. Stupid penalties by the defense on that last drive. I get it. I'm not hammering them, though, because the team defense had to be exhausted because, again, incompetence by the coaching and the offense put them in a position to have something go awry, and it did. Now, that Jet offense is not good outside of Breece Hall. They just aren't. Garrett Wilson was invisible. Tight end's invincible. Hall had the one play, the 50-yarder on a busted coverage on a screen by the Giants earlier. That was it. And they gifted the game to him on a silver platter. If Gano was hurt, he shouldn't have been out there. If he's out there, he's got a job to do. There's no pussyfooting around this. Now he's on the IR. You don't have him. Fine. But don't put him out there if he's not ready to roll because he had earlier missed a longer kick that backed the Giants up. So the coaching. And look, this is not to say that I'm not a Brian Daboll believer or a Joe Shane believer. The Giants have cap issues. They're still getting to know this roster from taking it over a year ago. This team was going to take a step back. I think most logical football and Giant fans would agree with that. But the way they're losing some of these games is appalling. That Jet game was a punch to the... I mean, Jet fans weren't even celebrating that one. That's how bad it was. You had Jet fans that were almost embarrassed for the Giants. That's how bad that was. And there are losses through my 37 years on this earth that I can't even bring up because it makes my stomach turn. One of them involving a team down the Parkway. from many years ago. You all know what I'm talking about there. This one was bad. Records aside, it doesn't matter. Crosstown rival, you share the damn stadium with them. You were punching them in the mouth all game. All game. Even when the Jets had the lead, you just felt that the Giants were in control. Even though they couldn't do anything offensively, Zach Wilson was a zero. And they give him an opportunity because Zach Wilson might not be very good, but he's still an NFL caliber quarterback. And you gave him a chance to go down the field. And the Jet fans don't like it, but he did. Now, I don't think Zach Wilson's the answer. Matter of fact, I think with most people to know that he's not. But he did his job in that moment, put Jets in position to win with 1 second. They kick the field goal. Thank you, Giants. It goes to overtime. Giants do nothing. Jets get the ball, game over. Kind of sums up the Giants season. Now, you look around the Giants this week, they'll be in Vegas. Vegas just firing in McDaniels and the offensive coordinator. The GM is out as well. This is a Vegas team that has just benched Jimmy Garoppolo. So Aiden O'Connell, the rookie from Purdue, is going to get his first start. This is going to be interesting. With Daniel Jones coming back and the Giants' offensive line looking like it's healthier, I think you're going to have an opportunity now for the Giants to win football games, but from a win-loss rankings perspective, it's probably too late. That Jet loss coming on the heels of a couple of weeks ago, where you should have had the Buffalo Bills knocked down in the loss column. But incompetence on the offense lost you that game as well. Coaching in both halves lost you that game as well. So I don't know what has been the change here in decision-making from year 1 to year 2, but it hasn't been good. Year 3 is when you'll be able to pass a lot of judgment when the Giants have all the money to spend or more money to spend to improve. Yes, the line. Yes, they need an alpha on the outside. And folks, quite honestly, Daniel Jones comes back this week. Whether you like it or not, the rest of the season, he's probably playing for his job. He's probably playing for his future as the Giants quarterback. Now, I like the kid. And yes, a huge part of the problem this year has been the wall in front of him. That is undeniable. But that offensive line has gotten better. And the Giants' O-line did a damn good job against the Jets on Sunday. With 2 different quarterbacks, one being a rookie. So the excuses here might be running out for Daniel Jones. We'll see. Now, the neck injury wasn't his first that he's coming back from, so you got to be careful there. But we are absolutely going to learn a lot more. And it seems like we're going through this cycle again of evaluating Daniel Jones. Because the Giants can eat the contract and get out in 24. Whether or not they want to do that or whether or not they do that will hinge, like it or lump it, on how he plays the rest of this season. And there are winnable games coming up. Starting Sunday against the Raiders. You got another game coming up against the Commanders. You got the Rams on the schedule, who are not a very good team. The Cowboys are in there. That's probably a loss. But you've got winnable games on this schedule. It's one way or another going to be an opportunity for Daniel Jones to show what he has. Unless the offensive line takes another nosedive, which I don't think it will, because it is very much improved. So hats off to the Giants there for making those adjustments when they needed to. Too little, too late, probably. But you got your stomach turning from last week's loss to the Jets. Not that they lost the game, but how they lost. I mean, ask any Cleveland Brown fan or New York Jet fan for that matter, how many times their franchises had been in games like that over the course of history and lost them. This is a Giant franchise throughout, for most of the years until fairly recently, had won those games. And you knew they would close. The golden ages with Sims, the really good Manning years. That hasn't happened. It was almost like the Giants forgot that even when they had them on the ropes, and Saquon Barkley had a fairly good game, can't do it by himself. Even when they had them on the ropes, they forgot that the New York Jets were a professional defense, and a pretty damn good one at that. and they lost it. Instead of being 3-5 and more in the mix here of this wild card race, now they've got more work to do and basically no room for error. And at 2-6, odds and history are certainly not on their side. And you almost feel like deja vu again pre-last season if you're a Giant fan because you've been here before. All right, let's take a look at the Week 9 slate. You got a lot of good games this week. It starts Thursday night, and this one's interesting. This one goes on the road to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's going to be hot pick here. They're home. Any pick status up in the air going into it. Will Levis, the quarterback, is going to start for Tennessee. 4 touchdowns in his debut and a win against Atlanta last week. You know what? I'm going with the road team. I'm going with Tennessee. Stay in the fight and live and play all great. That's part of Pittsburgh would be the last team in anyway at the But give me the Thursday night upset. Give me Tennessee going first and getting the W. I think you're in for a treat. I think Will Levis really put himself here tonight. And I just want to stop the match for one second. Actually, I'll put the music also. Our buddy Vinny is on the line. What's going on, pal?
Pete, what are you doing, Pete?
Well, I'm almost over last week's loss.
Pete, I got to correct you on quite a few things today.
Go nuts. I'm not going to cut you off.
Okay. First of all, how you doing, pal? Thank you. You got a sanction? You good. Thank you. Pete.
Vin, what are we doing?
Okay, we're good here. All right. First of all, the best part of the Jets defense is not their run defense. It's their linebackers. The Jets are horrible against the run. The Jets are horrible against the run. They gave up 128 yards to Saquon Barkley, and they knew he was going to run every play. They're bad against the run. That's number one. Number two, the Giants only played 3 good games. Again, their last 3 games have been good on defense. Their first 4 or 5 games, they were absolutely terrible on defense. They haven't been good all year. Number 3.
The first couple of games, Vin, they're on the field the whole game.
They were terrible. The Giants were horrible.
I mean, even against Dallas.
They were horrible against Arizona. They were terrible against Josh Dobbs. They were terrible all year except for the last 3 games. I'll give them. Wake Martindale has drawn some stuff up. And the third thing is the Giants' offensive line is improving. They're terrible. If Vito didn't throw the ball, how do you know if they were good or not?
Well, somebody's got to block for the running backs.
There's nobody's. That was all Saquon.
I mean, what I would say,
Evan Neal is a totem pole. I can play better guard than tackle than Evan Neal. He stinks.
He's been out. You haven't seen Evan Neal for 2 weeks. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think
absolutely stinks.
It's a kick in the right direction for the Giants with Andrew Thomas potentially, and you hope coming back Sunday.
You're better off putting Joe Jett at left tackle than Evan Neal.
But the kid Tyree Phillips has acquitted himself well. They've done a better job of balancing out the O-line. And Taylor had been able to have some mobility, showed that. After the Miami game, I think they got the message that there had to be adjustments made. So you have to give.
That's why you got 2 quarterbacks that are hurt.
But I think the defense gets a little ragged on for earlier in the season. I think it's a damn good unit, and I think they were put in a corner by the offense. I think that was fairly obvious. So we'll have to agree to disagree there.
And one other thing.
Go ahead.
It was pouring rain. Rain.
I had friends in the game. They said it was miserable.
Zach Wilson didn't play that bad the whole game. He had 3 huge drops in the game. 3 monstrous drops. Breece Hall would have went for another touchdown if he doesn't drop that pass over the middle. Garrett Wilson dropped a 20-yard pass.
Yes, he did.
And Lazard dropped a key pass over the middle. Zach Wilson threw for 240 yards in torrential downpour and brought his team back to win. If you just watch Rex
2 inexcusable fumbles.
No, the second one wasn't inexcusable. It was a new center. The center came in and made a bad transaction. It was a bad transaction. It was a third-string center. This kid's playing with 3 third-string offensive linemen, 1 second-string offensive lineman, and Mekhi Becton, who made Kayvon Thibodeau, who stinks all year, look like Reggie White. Okay? Kayvon Thibodeau hasn't got around one good left tackle. He goes around this Beckton like he was Evan Neal.
Thibodeau had a really good game. He's
because he
played
played
better
against
than he gets
Beckton.
credit for.
Because he played against Beckton. He stinks all year. I've been focusing in on Thibodeau all year. Any good tackle pushes him around like he's a little kid. You watch any good tackle play against Thibodeau. He doesn't get near the quarterback. I'm just telling you right now. Yeah.
He's used in a little bit of a different way. I think when they move him around that line, they're trying to get their footing. And I think the proof the last couple of weeks has certainly been in that pudding where I think when a season goes bad, and Vin, you notice, you're a Giants fan. When things go bad, you pick a target. For the Giants, it's been Daniel Jones. Of late, defensively, it's been Wink until recently, and Kayvon Thibodeau.
Daniel Jones is fine. It ain't Daniel Jones' fault when you got nobody blocking from. You give Daniel Jones an offensive line. You give him guys that are open. He'll hit them all day long.
I hope so.
The kid's got a cannon. He sees the field. You give him and put him on. You put Daniel Jones on Miami. He's throwing for 400 or 500 yards a game. And you put Tua on the Giants. He's in the Greenwood Cemetery right now.
Okay,
I
gotcha.
Okay, same thing with Zach Wilson. You put him on Miami. He's a Pro Bowler. It's all where you are. Daniel Hackett. I got to mention one thing about the Jets. Nobody says. Every offensive move the Jets made in the offseason has been a disaster. Aaron Rodgers, Nathaniel Hackett, Cobb, Lazard, Hardman, Cook. Every guy they changed, every move they made offensively has been a complete failure, and they're still 4-3 with Zach Wilson. Okay, this kid's got so much resolve. I'm telling you, this kid is going to get better and better and better. You watch. He's going to have the true test for the Jets defense comes Monday night. If they keep the Chargers in the teens, then I'll be a true believer in their defense. But I think it's going to be a shootout Monday night.
Well, listen.
Yeah,
listen, and Vinny, listen, I appreciate the call, brother. Thank you.
And the Giants are a lock this week.
Okay.
Daniel Jones is going to have a big game.
I hope so.
Raiders are horrible.
Thank you, brother.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, so look, like Vin has said, and he's called before, and most of the time, I'll agree with Vinny. I'm not the one that's going to sit here and rag on Zach Wilson. Do I think he's the answer? No. But could you do worse? I do think so, right? I certainly the resolve is a good word there to use about Zach Wilson. The two fumbles irk you. Yeah, I know with the new center and all that stuff, but you can make excuses for days. And I used to do that, for Daniel Jones. The guy's got to play better. When he comes back with a better Giants offensive line, and the fact of the matter is, like, that Jet run defense has improved, so has the Giants offensive line. So we've had miscues with the Giants coaching late in that Jet game, inexcusable. Yeah, they've made adjustments up front that needed to be made, and you've seen better production on that line from tackle to tackle. And that's a big deal. Now, Darren Waller looks like he's going to miss extended time. That is going to remove a tight end for blocking purposes from the field, because now Daniel Bellinger, who had served in that role and can be a reliable receiver, is going to need to be that reliable receiver. So, things don't get easier for the Giants here without Waller. Where's the ball going? I mean, one would assume with the zero that Isaiah Hodgins has been this year, and the fact that Jalen Hyatt is struggling to get open, you're leaning on Darius Slayton here. So, from a depleted wide receiver room to begin with, I mean, Paris Campbell had got pushed down the depth chart. We'll see what happens there. Up front defensively, no more Leonard Williams. They ship him off for 2 picks, which was great. Won a second rounder in the upcoming draft to Seattle. But offensively, where's the ball going to go outside of Saquon? And now I would assume Darius Slayton. So we'll see. But looking back at this Week 9 slate, again, I like Tennessee on the road Thursday night in Pittsburgh. And then you get into the weekend slate. Miami goes to KC. Tough spot for both teams. Kansas City coming off a really lousy loss to Denver. And you know what? I'm going to piggyback the L train there and go with Miami on the road. Kansas City will be the home favorite. They should be. But give me Tua and company. Mike McDaniel taking one at Arrowhead. Arizona goes to Cleveland. No Dobbs under center for Arizona. He's now in Minnesota, expected to be the starter with Kirk Cousins done for the season. I'm all over Cleveland on this one, but I'm not going to totally dismiss the idea that Cleveland can still put a Cleveland and dump this game away. Chicago goes to New Orleans. Give me the Saints. Chicago's in disarray. Fields not going to be back to 100% whether he plays or not. I'll take the Saints at home in this one. Rams going to Green Bay. Look, like you're going to learn more about Daniel Jones the rest of the season for the Giants and if he can lock up this job. I think the same is going to be said here for Jordan Love in Green Bay. 8 picks this season. I think that's something that is it like Zach Wilson's turnover Sunday irk you. I think you have that there with Jordan Love, where some of these interceptions have been inexcusable to this point in the season. And yeah, by the way, that's a good job by one of our listeners. The Kansas City-Miami game this week, I misspoke. It actually is in Germany, which I know rubs a lot of people the wrong way with these overseas 9:30 games, especially if you're a fantasy player, keeping tabs on all those things. Lower scoring games you generally get when you go overseas. We had Jacksonville in back-to-back weeks. Pretty much acquit themselves well out there, and Jacksonville's the team that's playing pretty good ball. It's going to be interesting to note. I know the NFL is sitting on the success with these overseas games, but the diehards don't like it, and I get it. I really do. That's not going to change where I am. I just think Miami's going to win the game, whether that game had to been in Arrowhead, South Beach, or in Germany. So I'm still going to go with the Dolphins. But if you see on social media and you research some of the opinions people have about these overseas games here, it's not all green. It really isn't all that positive. So the NFL, despite what they say with ratings on TV and whatnot, and how it's been received overseas, might have to reevaluate what they want to do as they continue to really seriously consider putting an NFL franchise overseas. Again, like I said, I like the Rams over Green Bay. Here's Minnesota going to Atlanta. This was an Atlanta team that gave up 4 passing touchdowns to rookie Will Levis a week ago for Tennessee. I think the future is bright there for him, as it is for when he's healthy, Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis. I'm going to go Atlanta here at home. I think it's close. I think it's lower scoring, but I think Atlanta gets it done. Desmond Ridder to the bench, so he will not be under center for Atlanta this weekend as well. So the quarterback carousel across the league continues to go on and on. Seattle goes to Baltimore. This will be a good one. Seattle looked pretty good last week, but I like Baltimore here. I like Lamar and company at home, continuing some winning ways where they play well. Tampa Bay goes to Houston. Houston playing pretty good ball. For a team that many thought would be toward the bottom, this is not a team that's going to knock down any, postseason contending doors this year. But they've played pretty well in DeMeco Ryans' first year there with C.J. Stroud under center. Tampa, middle of the pack type deal with Baker Mayfield. I just don't see Tampa going to Houston this weekend getting the victory. So give me the Texans. Washington's at the Patriots. I mean, if you think the best game of the week is probably the Dallas-Philly game, then Washington-New England's got to be the worst. I mean, there's no flair for this game. Both teams are lousy. I'll go Pats simply because they're home. Colts go to Carolina. The Bryce Young rookie season has not gone well for this Carolina team. Lately, you're starting to see signs of growth. He's targeting Jonathan Mingo, trying to get the ball out quicker. I like the Colts here, despite the injury there with Richardson. Indy on the road over Carolina. Dallas goes to Philly. I got to go Philly here. This is a well-rounded Philadelphia team, and as talented as Dallas is on the defensive side of the ball, and the pounding that they just put on a lousy Rams team, I can't trust Dallas going to Philly. NFC East matchup. I know all teams get up for the divisional matchups. I just can't see Philadelphia losing to Dallas this weekend at home. Giants go to Vegas. This is a Vegas team in turmoil. The Raiders will, I would assume, without looking right now, They will be the favorite at home. They're the heavy pick in most bracket pools now. Daniel Jones back. You would think Andrew Thomas comes back. Saquon Barkley played pretty damn well last week against that good Jets defense in the rain. I'm going to go Giants, low scoring, close. Good to have Danny Dimes back, but he's got to play well against an improved, with an improved offensive line up front there for Big Blue. Buffalo goes to Cincy. It's a good game. I mean, you got Buffalo, Cincinnati, Dallas, Philly. The game in Germany, for those who get up, watch, I believe it's a 9:30 a.m. kick between Miami, Kansas City. You've got some good games here. I like Buffalo on the road. Cincinnati will be a slight favorite, but I'm going to go Josh Allen and company here. You know, I think this might be higher scoring than even some might assume with the two good quarterbacks here and the weapons both teams have, an improved ground game for Buffalo. Leonard Fournette in the mix now. How he'll be used remains to be seen. But I like Buffalo on the road in Cincy. And then the Monday night game, you got the Chargers going to the Jets. Justin Herbert. I mean, is there a team in the league, especially what happened blowing the lead to Jacksonville in the playoffs last year? Is there a team in the league with Justin Herbert at quarterback who needs more of a statement win or a marquee win in a big spot than the Chargers? It hasn't happened, but I do think it happens this Monday. I like the Chargers' tight matchup. I think it'll be a physical game. I think this is a Charger defense that doesn't get talked about enough. And certainly what the Jets have done, head above water at 4-3. Stealing one last week against the Giants, but they've got wins over Buffalo, wins over Philly. This would be another impressive win for the Jets that I certainly think they're capable of getting and would not be shocked to be wrong here. But I am going to go Chargers close. Look, it's a good week 9. No week in the NFL is bad, but now with the buys creeping in, some teams starting to get healthy. The Giants are getting healthy in certain spots, but dinged up in the other ones. No Graham Gano, no Darren Waller for extended periods of time. Kirk Cousins out in Minnesota with the ACL, and you've got some jockeying around. This is where it really starts to heat up, as now you can take a look at and see, where your team is positioned with the playoffs a couple of months away. Still plenty of weeks ahead, plenty of games to go. You look at a Jet team. With a loss, you're 4-4, still right in the mix. What 5-3 would mean to this Jet team with a Monday night victory? I mean, that stadium's going to be rocking Monday night when the Chargers come to town. And it's a Chargers team, that with Staley and company need a marquee victory here. And they hadn't got it under his tutelage the last couple of years. Yeah, I think this is a big spot for both teams. And if the Chargers come out of there, I mean, that's a big deal after starting 0-2 to stay in this thing moving toward the second half of the season. I think it would be pretty impressive. And I do expect that it will be the Chargers in a close physical contest getting that victory over the New York Jets this weekend.
With you every week.
Sports Today with Peter J.
And you heard it in the open, the highlight from last week as we switch gears to college football, the Oklahoma-Kansas game. From my perspective, it's a game of the week. Kansas hasn't done a thing in these marquee matchups in the Big 12, and all they do is come back late and take down then ranked number 6 Oklahoma at home, 38-33. It was a big victory. We got a lot of Notre Dame fans that listen to the program. Another drubbing for Notre Dame as they pound on Pittsburgh after completely dismantling USC the week prior. The bad news for the Irish, though, is they lose their number 1 receiver for the rest of the season. That's tight end Mitchell Evans. And it's the kid who took over from Michael Mayer, who was drafted by the Las Vegas Raiders this year. This wasn't a security blanket for Sam Hartman, Notre Dame's quarterback. This was his alpha, and he's gone for the year. It makes you scratch your head a little bit that this kid was on the field when he got hurt, and Notre Dame was beating Pitt 37-0. You've seen it before, on many levels. When guys get hurt in games that are no longer in doubt, and that's what happened to the Irish last week as they get prepared for a noon showdown this weekend in Death Valley against the 4-4 Clemson Tigers. Oregon looked real good last week, too. They beat Utah 35-6, and Arizona knocks down Oregon State 27-24. Biggest news of the week out of college football, and it's big news every year when the first unveiling of the college football playoff rankings come out. Now, I think most people probably figured that Georgia would be number one. Committee disagrees. Top four going into this week, week 10 in college football: Ohio State 8-0, Georgia 8-0, Michigan 8-0, Florida State 8-0. Knocking on the door, Washington. And that's huge because right behind Washington at 5 is Oregon at 6 at 7-1. Oregon's only loss came to number 5 Washington. Texas at 7, Alabama at 8, Oklahoma 9, Ole Miss at 10. Still not out of this thing. And the major players in the Big Ten, Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, these one-loss teams, they're all right there. So Penn State's got a shot here. Even after the loss to Ohio State, Michigan and Ohio State are going to play one another. But I think these rankings tell a lot. They certainly show how the committee feels about Ohio State's resume to this point, with some impressive victories thus far for the Buckeyes. They took one late, thanks to lackluster performance and decision-making in South Bend week 4, getting a 3-point victory over Notre Dame. They pounded a really good Maryland team, used defense to beat then-ranked number 7 Penn State, and earned a tough victory over Wisconsin a week ago. Now Ohio State, as the fresh number 1 in the poll, goes on the road to Rutgers this weekend for a noon showdown in Piscataway. You know, Ohio State will be a monster favorite against this 6-win Rutgers team, and I expect them to win the game, but this contest is going to be a hell of a lot closer than people think. If you're asking for a pick, I like Ohio State, but they're not going to go in there and win this game 50-3. This is a Rutgers team. Now, with the reinventing of what Greg Schiano's done in round 2 of his tenure at Rutgers, is 6-2. They're going to a bowl and they know it. But man, what would a win for Rutgers over number 1 Ohio State mean to the trajectory of that program? I don't see it, but I see a close game. The game I love this weekend, Texas, 7 in the first rankings, are going to host number 23 Kansas State. This is an electrifyingly talented Kansas State team on both sides of the football, and they go to Texas this weekend. I mean, these are the type of games that you look forward to, with Texas hosting, still knowing, even with the one loss, that you got a shot at the Final Four with some help. Man, I think Kansas State's going to go in there and give them a game. That's a noon kick Eastern time on Fox Saturday. I think Kansas State gets it done. I think it turns out to be the game of the week on paper as we talk now, but I like what Kansas State is building here with the competitive slate they've played to this point. Matter of fact, I think they were done a disservice by being ranked 23 in this first poll in the playoff rankings. Give me the Cats going to take down the Longhorns in Austin on a noon Saturday on Fox. I like Kansas State. I think it's going to be a great game. You got 8-0 Air Force. Start the poll at number 25. They might be one of the better stories in college football, doing it with defense, but that Air Force offense can punch you in the mouth. And they get an Army team who struggled this season to the tune of 2-6. You know, I'm going to go with the Falcons this weekend. You know, I think they get it done in fairly convincing fashion. I've already beaten Navy this year. Commander-in-Chief trophy. They look to hang on to that with a victory over Army. And I think they get it this weekend in Colorado. Georgia and Missouri, another good game. Mizzou starts out 12 in the rankings. Now Georgia bumped to number 2. This game's in Athens, 3:30 on CBS. Georgia going to be without Brock Bowers again. I think they get it done at home. Close game. This Missouri team has been a fun story all season. I just don't think they're going to be able to get past McConkey and company in Athens this weekend. Another game I love, Oklahoma State. They've been playing red-hot football as well. very similar to what Kansas State's been doing. They go against Oklahoma coming off that loss to Kansas. So an in-state battle. The Cowboys welcome the Sooners. That's a 3:30 kick on ABC. I'll do it. I'm going to go Sooners there. I know they're on the road. They're the higher-ranked team, but I like Brett Venables and company rebounding from a gut-wrenching loss. Washington, USC. 7:30 kick, ABC. This USC team is reeling. And you wonder what type of impact this is going to have on the draft stock potentially. It won't be much, in my opinion. I think he's still the number one for Caleb Williams. The bad performance in South Bend, coupled with the struggles against Utah. This is a USC team that even last week against Cal snuck one out. I think Washington with Michael Penix, who's a Heisman contender, is just going to be too much, even though the game is at SC. I like Washington here, and I like them fairly convincingly. Both teams need the game, especially Washington, knocking on the door of that top four. This would be a statement win again, much like the Oregon game was for Washington, if they can get it, and I think they will. You've got a big slate of games this week. Arizona's going to host UCLA. That's the late game on Fox Sports 1 at 10:30. Arizona at 5-3. They've got some head-scratching losses, but they've played with the big guns well this season. I think that'll be a good one. Everybody looks at a Chip Kelly team like UCLA and think they win with offense. But this year, it's been all about the UCLA defense, and I think you got a glimpse at how good they are against some of the playmakers that Colorado's run out there this season. You saw that last week. So this is a good UCLA team. They're going to get a good test when they go to Arizona this week. But I think UCLA gets the job done, and I do expect them to come out of there with a rather impressive victory, and one that you would think would move them up in that college football ranking from number 19 to where it is now. So look, you get the week in the NFL, and I gave you the picks there. You've got everything that's going on with college football, and you look at the NBA. And like I said a couple of weeks ago, as the season goes on with football and now baseball ending, more basketball, more hockey. But just a quick note on the NBA, Celtics and Mavericks off the perfect starts. They look really good. The Nuggets have won 4 of their first 5 as they look to defend their title with Joker and company. The Knicks sort of sluggish out of the gates to the tune of 2-3 as they try to get their footing and really learn who they're going to be on both ends of the floor this year. Well, while healthy, you had all the hullabaloo around the Clippers landing James Harden in the huge trade earlier in the week with the 76ers. So Harden, PJ Tucker, Philip Petrusev go to the Clippers. Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, 2 good players, Nick Batum and KJ Martin, and a first-round pick unprotected in 2028, and a few more other picks, including a pick swap, will go to the Clippers. But obviously the cornerstone of that deal was James Harden, which for many people elevates now how they view the Clippers and their title hopes as the season progresses. In the NHL, it's amazing. You watched a historic regular season from the Bruins a year ago, and they had a lousy ending to it. And all they are is right here out of the gates, 9 games in, 17 points, 8-0-1. And then the defending champ Vegas Golden Knights are right here with 19 points at 9-0-1. We are going to talk loads of basketball and hockey. We've got guests lined up to come on and give their professional insight and wisdom as the seasons progress. We're in the infancy. Baseball just ending. The Rangers get their World Series title. There's a lot of good stuff coming up, especially basically to the midway point of the college and NFL season. There's a lot to break down, folks. And as always, I appreciate you joining me every week on Sports Today with Peter J. We're doing a Thursday special because I got a wedding this weekend. My best friend's getting married out in Long Island, so I will be away this weekend, hence the Thursday night hosting. And just before I get out of here, it wouldn't be appropriate to have this week's show without mentioning the passing of the legendary Bobby Knight, the legendary Indiana coach. People seem to forget that he played his college career a pretty damn good forward at Ohio State. Coached at Army for 7 years. He was an assistant there for a couple of years before taking the reins at Army. And then he spent 3 decades at Indiana before coaching almost a decade at Texas Tech. Over 900 wins in his career. Won a title as a player with Ohio State in 1960. 3 titles, 76, 81, and 1987, his last in Indiana. I mean, this is a guy who was a marquee figure, 5 Final Fours. I think it was 11 or 12 Big Ten regular season titles. There was an NIT championship thrown in there. Sure, not without the controversy. It was a king of the one-liners was Bobby Knight. Right, said when he was dead and buried that they bury him upside down so his critics can kiss his ass. I mean, he had some great quotes throughout the years. Aggressive at times, but from an XO perspective and winning, and someone who clearly, despite how controversial he could be, how raucous he could be, how coarse and vulgar he could be at times, somebody who clearly loved the game of basketball. Bobby Knight passing away earlier this week at the age of 83. So certainly rest in peace to Coach Knight, who won't soon be forgotten what he did at Indiana and beyond for the college basketball landscape. Thank you to everyone who called in, listening in. Danny chiming in, reminding me that, yes, the Miami-Kansas City game this weekend is not at Arrowhead. It is in Germany, to the chagrin of many people watching the game here in the States. It's a 9:30 Eastern time, a 9:30 a.m. Eastern kick this weekend, with Germany playing host to the National Football League as the NFL continues to explore the potential of opening a franchise and expanding overseas. We'll see you next Friday, November 10th, right here, same time, same place, 7 o'clock Eastern time. There'll be a ton more to break down, and we can get into it all. Have a great weekend, everybody. I appreciate all you for including me as part of your schedule and Sports Today with Peter J moving forward. I'll talk to you all next week, and as always, go Irish.
Sports Today with Peter J.